in 15th century Spain, two hardened assassins walked up to a monk in the middle of the street with strict orders to kill him.
Right.
But they didn't. Instead, they dropped their weapons, fell to their knees, and actually begged for his forgiveness.
Which is just incredible.
It really is. So welcome back to the deep dive. Today, you and I are digging into a really fascinating stack of sources you sent our way. We've got, historical encyclopedias, municipal archives, and even modern street festival programs.
Yeah, it's quite a mix.
Definitely. And we're looking at the life of St. John of Sahagún. Our mission today is to figure out how one man managed to disarm killers with just a look, broker peace in a city that was basically tearing itself apart and somehow end up being celebrated hundreds of years later with, parades of classic cars.
It's a completely wild trajectory. And, what really stands out when you comb through these historical texts is that we have this tendency to view medieval saints as these pristine, passive figures.
Oh, for sure, like statues.
Exactly. We picture them in cloistered, silent monasteries, completely removed from the dirt and noise of the real world. But John's story completely shatters that marble image. I mean, it is fundamentally a masterclass in social justice and conflict resolution.
Yeah.
We are talking about a man who operated in an era defined by extreme, violent inequality. And he used absolute conviction as his primary weapon.
So to really grasp how he operated, we can't just start with his birth. We have to look at the environment that forged him.
Definitely.
We have to travel to the town that literally gave him his name, Sahagun,
Right.
located in the province of Leon, Spain. And looking at the municipal archives, this town's origins are literally steeped in blood.
Yes, deep roots there.
Right. Long before John was born, around the year 304, during the Roman persecutions, two Christian brothers named Facundo and Primitivo were martyred there. The texts say they were decapitated and thrown into the river sea.
Which, is a brutal beginning. But in medieval history, the site of a martyrdom often becomes the seed for a settlement. Yeah, a primitive sanctuary was built on that spot to honor them. And in fact, the name of the town itself is an evolution of that violent history.
How so?
Well, the linguistic records show it started as Sanctus Facunduses. Then, over centuries of linguistic shifts, that morphed into Sahagun.
I see.
And eventually the F became an aspirated H, leaving us with Sahagun.
Wow, it's incredible how the past is literally baked right into the town's name. But Sahagun really transforms from a sanctuary into a powerhouse in the 11th century, right?
That's right.
Because King Alfonso VI takes refuge there. And to show his gratitude, he essentially supercharges the town's growth. The records show that in 1085, he grants the town a special charter known as a fuero.
Yep.
And he also introduces the French Cluny religious rite. Now, for those of us who aren't medieval historians, why did these two things matter so much?
Well, they are basically the twin engines of the town's explosion. Let's start with the Cluny rite. The French Cluny monastic order wasn't just about a different way to chant or say Mass.
Right, it's bigger than that.
Much bigger. Cluny was a massive, highly centralized administrative and economic powerhouse in medieval Europe. So when King Alfonso brought their influence into Sahagun, he was essentially installing an incredibly sophisticated, wealthy corporate headquarters right in the middle of Lyon.
Okay, so it's a huge economic boost. And to make a headquarters function, you need a workforce. Which brings us to the fuero.
Exactly. A fuero is a royal charter. But, you can really think of it as the ultimate medieval tax incentive package.
Oh, we like that.
Yeah, if you were willing to move to Sahagun, this charter guaranteed you certain legal protections and economic perks that you simply couldn't find elsewhere under the strict feudal systems of the time.
So it's a total magnet for talent and labor. It just draws people in.
Totally.
And the archives show that because of these incentives, Sahagun became known as the Spanish Cluny. It attracted this incredibly diverse population.
Very diverse, yeah.
You had Franks, who were essentially French merchants and artisans coming over the Pyrenees.
Yeah.
You had a thriving Jewish community establishing powerful trade networks. Right. And you had Mudejares. These were Muslims who remained in the Iberian Peninsula after the Christian reconquests. And they brought with them these highly advanced agricultural and architectural skills. So you have this massive convergence of cultures and money all in one spot.
Which, as you might guess, creates an environment totally ripe for friction. Because while the town was growing rich, the power dynamics were deeply skewed.
Right, the abbots.
Exactly. The abbots of the monastery weren't just spiritual leaders. They held absolute feudal authority over the town.
Let me make sure I'm visualizing this correctly. It's almost like a modern, rapid growth tech hub, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, like you have this massive sudden wealth, you have all this diverse international talent pouring in, but there's this intense, violent friction between the workers and the management. Except here, the management is the abbots.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that historical atmosphere of class struggle perfectly primed John for his future. This was a working class actively fighting against elite exploitation.
Yeah, the local burgesses were actually revolting.
Right. The 12th century in Sahagun was defined by these famous bloody revolts by those local burgesses against the abusive power of the abbots. And that rebellious streak stayed in the town's DNA for centuries.
It really did. In fact, jumping way ahead to the source material from 1931, Sahagun was only the second town in all of Spain to proclaim the Second Republic.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, it earned them the official title of Muy Ejemplar Ciudad, or Very Exemplary City. They just never stopped challenging authority.
They really didn't. And that brings us to John himself. He emerges from this bustling, wealthy, rebellious town, and his very first major act in life is to radically reject the very wealth and status his hometown was famous for producing.
Yeah, let's look at his early life. The historical encyclopedias note he was born to a prominent family. His parents prayed and fasted for a child before he arrived. Now, I do want to point out a discrepancy in the historical sources here.
Oh, the birth year.
Right. Some say he was born in 1419, while others place it around 1430. So, just as an impartial observation for you listening, while we can't be sure of the exact year, the facts of his life and his impact remain exactly the same.
Exactly. The timeline of his development is what matters. So he was educated by Benedictines, and his father secured him a highly lucrative church position. A benefice.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because a benefice sounds like just a job title, but it's really a massive asset, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Walking away from a guaranteed lucrative benefice in the 1400s is the equivalent of a modern person walking away from a massive trust fund. What drives that level of detachment?
Well, his detachment wasn't an escape from the world. It was actually a way to engage with it more deeply. Sources say he had this profound devotion to the Eucharist.
Right.
They note that he frequently saw the sacred host resplendent in glory, and that intense inner life fueled a radical empathy. It compelled him to care for the sick, the needy, and the exploited widows of the city. He resigned everything except the humble chaplaincy of St. Agatha.
It's just incredible. So he goes to the University of Salamanca for 4 years to study theology. But then he gets a severe kidney stone.
Yes. And we have to talk about what that meant back then.
Right, a kidney stone operation in the 1400s. No anesthesia, no sterile tools.
It was a horrific, agonizing procedure.
And he vows that if he survives, he would become a religious monk. And he does survive. So in 1463, he joins the hermits of St. Augustine.
And that radical empathy we talked about, it made him absolutely fearless because he wanted nothing. No one could buy him, which made him incredibly dangerous to the corrupt elite.
He becomes this fearless disruptor. The sources compare his preaching to John the Baptist. He specifically scourged the crimes and vices of the rich and noble.
Yeah, he held nothing back. Which leads to this incredible moment with the powerful Duke of Alba.
Oh, the Duke of Alba.
Right. The Duke actually complained about John's sharp tongue in the pulpit. He wanted John to tone it down.
And John famously fires back. He says, "Sir Duke, tell me, why did I walk into that pulpit? To proclaim the truth to all who would listen, or to shamefully praise you?"
Just absolute fearlessness. And it wasn't just the nobles. His words caused visceral reactions everywhere. The records say women of Salamanca pelted him with stones in the street after a sermon against extravagant dress.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Because a powerful nobleman, angry at John for correcting him about oppressing his vassals, decides to hire 2 assassins to kill the monk.
Right, a very medieval solution.
Exactly. But when they approached John, the sources say they were so awestruck by the serene, angelic sweetness of his face that they lost their courage. They literally dropped their weapons and begged his forgiveness.
And this perfectly illustrates John's unique power. I mean, he didn't use armed guards. He didn't use political maneuvering. His armor was total inner peace and unwavering conviction.
And that exact same fearless truth-telling is what gave him the ultimate moral authority to forge peace in a city tearing itself apart.
Yes, Salamanca. It was split into these violent, feuding factions.
Right. These noble families were just at each other's throats. But the sources say John had a special gift. He could penetrate the secrets of conscience, making it impossible to deceive him.
He used that gift to force good confessions and eradicate enmities. He could sit at a negotiating table and just cut through all the lies.
And it worked. Due to his relentless mediation, the opposing nobles of Salamanca finally signed a solemn, perpetual peace treaty in 1476.
Which is a monumental achievement. But tragically, his dedication to reforming morals led to his death.
Yeah, the ending is so dark. How is it that a man who successfully brokered a massive citywide peace treaty between heavily armed nobles could be taken down by such a seemingly small personal vendetta?
This raises an important question about the nature of peace. You see, systemic political peace is often easier to negotiate than matters of the human heart.
Oh, that makes sense.
Reforming society leaves lingering personal resentments. It proves that speaking the truth always carries a deeply personal cost.
Because he delivered scathing words on impurity to a nobleman living in open concubinage. The nobleman actually repented, but his companion swore vengeance.
Right, and she successfully administered a fatal poison to John.
Wow.
He suffered with unvarying patience for months before finally dying on June 11th, 1479.
So we have this somber reality of his martyrdom in the 15th century. But we transition from that to the vibrant, joyful way his memory is kept alive today in the very streets he once walked.
It's a huge contrast. He was beatified in 1601 and canonized in 1690. He is the patron saint of Salamanca, and his feast day is June 12th.
And looking at the modern festival program, it is just an incredible mix of the sacred and the spectacularly secular.
He really is.
Like you have the solemn mass at the new cathedral and a beautiful floral offering by the musical group La Expiración, which, is what you'd expect.
Right, very traditional.
But then there is a parade of giant, big-headed figures led by the brass band La Scala.
Yeah, the big heads are amazing.
And you have drummers from the Municipal School of Music filling the Plaza Mayor. There's a master class at the Glorieta Bullring. And my favorite, operation leader.
Oh, operation leader.
Yeah. It's a solidarity classic car ride to the Automobile History Museum to raise funds for the Little Sisters of the Poor. So what does this all mean? We have an ascetic 15th century monk who gave up all his wealth, and now he is celebrated with classic cars, bullfighting classes, and papier-mâché big heads.
Well, honestly, this is exactly as it should be.
Really?
Yeah. John was a man of the people. He championed the working class and mediated community disputes right there in the streets. So a loud, communal, charity-driven street festival is the ultimate manifestation of the social harmony he fought and died for.
That is such a cool way to look at it. He wouldn't have wanted a quiet, fearful city. Well, to summarize this incredible arc, we've seen how St. John of Sahagún went from a volatile boon town to a life of radical detachment. He stared down assassins and brokered peace for an entire city. And so, for you listening, I want you to consider your own life. Where do you have the opportunity to speak the truth, even when it's uncomfortable? How can you act as a mediator in your own fractured communities, workplaces, or families, drawing on John's example of fearless empathy?
And I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder, drawing on the geography of the sources today. We know that John's hometown of Sahagun was the very first major stop on the Camino de Santiago as it entered the province of Leon.
Right, the Way of St. James.
Yes. It served as a historic way station for weary pilgrims. Now, we usually think of John of Sahagún as a destination the patron saint cemented in the Cathedral of Salamanca.
The end of the journey.
Exactly. But given his hometown's roots as a path for travelers and his own restless pursuit of justice from the university to the pulpit, perhaps we should view his entire life as a psychological pilgrimage.
Oh, wow.
His true destination was never a physical shrine, but the difficult, unglamorous center of human conflict. So I'd challenge you to ask yourself, what necessary pilgrimage into the messy conflicts of your own world are you avoiding right now?
What a powerful note to end on. Taking that step into the mess is where the real work begins. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the life of St. John. Keep asking those hard questions, and we'll catch you next time.